Hello and welcome to another episode of Tea with Taylor. As always, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to interact or review my content. If you find any value from it, please consider sharing, or subscribing because it's important that we support content creators, products, ideas that support our values, and that's what I want to touch on a little bit in this episode. With Thanksgiving coming up, I know sometimes it's hard to realize it or to put it into perspective, but there is so much to be thankful for, so much to be grateful for. And I recently did a poll on if people were more optimistic or pessimistic, and it was split about 50-50. So I kind of want to communicate to all of you why there's just a lot to be optimistic about. And let's get into it. So I want to start off by saying, obviously with Thanksgiving coming up, this day and age, there is so much to be thankful for and grateful for. Even though it seems chaotic, we truly are living in the most prosperous era that has ever existed. And specifically, now of course, other countries as well. But if you live in America, you live in the most prosperous, free country that has ever existed. Now, there's some work to be done. I agree. But it's important that we remain and keep that perspective, and that we always are able to, mold our minds to be able to be grateful and to be thankful for everything that we do have when times are bad or chaotic or just depressing. Because when we look back to our parents' age, our grandparents, or even our great-grandparents, and beyond that, life is much easier now. Now, life was simpler back then because they didn't have technologies. They weren't able to see what was going on in the world at such a large scale and be able to compare themselves to others. But with that being said, now, even though their life was more simpler, it was more simpler back then, ours is much easier. Now, technology can be both a blessing and a curse. We know that. It's important that we take time away from social media, but it's also important to have the right perspective when it comes to social media and technology. I mean, literally, we are able to communicate with people all across the world at any given time. We're able to learn whatever we would like to learn just off the computer screen or the phone screen that almost everyone, especially if you live here in America, has access to. We're able to have independent journalists and independent people spread information at a wide scale. We are no longer having to rely on the powers that be, the politicians or the media outlets, to give us what is going on. And that is something to be optimistic about. When it comes to certain situations or events that are going on in the world, with the people on the ground and these cell phones, they're able to distribute information that probably the media outlets never would or never have. And we need to realize that this is a new phenomenon. People always say, back in the day when you had Walter Cronkite or whatever that gentleman's name is, everyone seemed to be on the same page. It seemed that we were getting, the center, the truth. Now, nothing against that individual because I've never watched him, but how do you know that? How do you know it was the truth when you had 3 channels that people watched? So of course people thought the same. The information that was being provided to them was all the same. Now, with the use of technology and social media, we have the ability, and what we're seeing live out today, the decentralization of information. And that's something to be optimistic about, that we can spread ideas and we can spread the truth of events or spread information that we would like to portray or to communicate to people at a large scale at the click of our fingers, at the swipe of our fingers. That's something to be optimistic about, and we're just living through it. I mean, now it's been going on for a little bit, for probably around a decade, but more so recently with the amount of people that are now interacting on social media. But as far as human history, it's such a short period of time. Now, of course, this does come with its downsides, and it's things that we need to be concerned about. With children and young adults should not be on social media, in my opinion. They don't need to be on social media until they hit at least 17, 18. And even with us, we need to be able to take time away from social media, and we need to be able to put our phones down and just reconnect consciously. And with that being said, we have become aware of that. We have people that are awakening that there is a conscious effort on the human psyche, that people, businesses, politicians, the powers that be, institutions are actively seeking the consciousness of our society. But we are awakening to that, and that's something to be optimistic about. For years, for all of eternity probably, but definitely for many, many decades, there has always been sinister acts and evil people trying to do harm on civilization. Now, it's been happening for a long time, throughout the decades. We've slowly been giving up some of our rights or our freedoms, or we've been giving up our culture. We've been giving up the ability to teach our children to the state. But people are awakening to that, and that's something to be optimistic about. When you have conservative values becoming cool, when you have personal responsibility becoming cool, when you have Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist who talks about personal responsibility and psychology getting hundreds of millions of views all across the world, that's something to be optimistic about. When you have new companies like the Daily Wire with Candace Owens and becoming culturally relevant, that's something to be optimistic about. When you see what happened in the past decades of the fall of God now becoming, re-immersed into society, where you have Justin Bieber who speaks about his religion and his relationship with God and how God saved him. That's something to be optimistic about. And it is up to us to support creators that hold our values, that create content and products and information or communicate ideas that mean a lot to us, that have value to us. It's important that we support them, whether it be through sharing their information, whether it be supporting businesses and products and individuals with our pocketbooks. Stop putting your money towards things that actively destruct the very culture that you live in. That is so counterproductive to what you want to see in your society. So stop doing it. But what's awesome is we have the power to do that. And people are realizing it. People are realizing that we've been sleeping at the wheel and letting politicians control our lives and gain more control over our industry and our economy. So now we have conservative, business-like minded, freedom-loving individuals running for office, becoming culturally relevant. When you have the Ian Smith from the Atlas Gym in New Jersey standing up to the government and being supported by people across the world. That's something to be optimistic about. When you have conservative values becoming not only are their ideas being brought to the forefront and being debated, because it's important for these ideas to be debated freely and let the best ideas win. You also have conservative values and they're funny. We have the conservative side of the alley, of the political spectrum. They're the ones with the memes. They're the ones that are actually funny. These other people, the past culture that now wants to just control everyone and wants to not allow freedom of speech, they're no longer even funny. They have claptrap. They don't even have laughter. That's something to be optimistic about. When we have technologies where people can work from home and still watch their children while they're working, that's something to be optimistic about. When we have technologies where we can work a full-time job and also work towards a dream and aspiration, that's something to be optimistic about. Our parents, or even our grandparents, our great-grandparents in time before that, when they were done with work, they were done with work. They weren't able to go on their computer or their phones and to learn a new skill or to actively work on creating a business on the side. Those are things that we should be optimistic about. When we see our ideas and our values being one in the culture sphere, that's something to be optimistic about. When we have real people who've created real businesses and really believe in the idea of freedom and what is America, that's something to be optimistic about. Now, these things don't mean it's going to be easy. It's important that you don't always have to speak up as much as I do, or people with a lot more influence than I do, like Candace Owens, the Daily Wire. You have politicians, you have all these individuals who are courageous to speak out for values that they believe in. You don't have to do that. But hopefully you're speaking with your family and friends. You're sharing content that you respect and believe in. You're raising your children. You're putting a conscious effort and awareness on what is being taught to your children. What are your children looking at online? What are they being taught to in school? When I see parents now participating in school board meetings and demanding change within the school board, that's something to be optimistic about. When we realize that we've given up not only our culture but our education from our parents of our children to the state, and now we're realizing that and how important it is that we teach and we parent our own children, that's something to be optimistic about. And now it's easy to get lost in the fog because there's so much going on and there's so much chaos. But life is about perspective. And it's important how we perceive life and what is it that we are doing to make the necessary changes that we want to see in our culture and our society. Is it homeschooling our children? Is it only putting your money towards companies that reflect your values? Is it getting involved in school boards or in your community level politics? I can promise you I will be on a board on wherever I live in Florida because I want to make sure that the policies that are being passed are going to be business friendly because I want to be a business owner. Are we talking and living out the values that we hold? That is how we change the culture. And that is something to be optimistic about. And living in a country where we have the freedom to do that, and we have the prosperity to do that, where we have, even the people who are living impoverished in America on a global scale is wealthy. They have cars, they have phones, they have TVs. Now there's a lot of work to be done, I agree. But that is something to be grateful for, to be thankful for. And with the awakening of people to realize that even though we have so much materialistic prosperity and potential, that we're realizing that it's important that we protect our consciousness and we become more aware and more intuitive. These are things that are happening and we need to support and we need to continue, but these are things that we should be optimistic about and we should be thankful for and grateful for. So with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you're able to catch yourself and cultivate your mind to realize the blessings you have in life. Don't always focus on the negative because life is perspective. And it is so important that you have a healthy mindset because your mindset is everything. So and I just hope whether it be speaking out or just doing things that reflect your values, I hope you find the courage to do so because be strong and courageous. Do not fear because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And with that, I will end this episode, and I just hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be with friends and family. Get off social media and just appreciate life because there's so much to appreciate, to be thankful for, to be grateful for, and to be optimistic about. So thank you for joining me. God bless. Take care, and I'll see you guys soon.